joint, elbow joint, similar wrist joint. But what you should keep in mind here is that the different bones are significantly different lengths. So, for example, for the dog, in the front legs, this joint way up near the body of the dog is actually the elbow. And then in the back legs, this joint, which is roughly in the middle of the leg, is actually the ankle. So although we would expect the knee to be at that position in the middle of the leg, it's actually the elbow, which I'm sorry, it's actually the ankle back there, which is why the rotation of this joint is opposite from the direction of the rotation for a human knee. Now, Chuck Jones presents a nice way of remembering these different anatomical forms for animals, which is the sole, ankle, knee, just dressing the animal in tennis shoes and striped socks. So here we have what tennis shoe and striped socks, with the top of the sock at the knee and the top of the tennis shoe at the ankle. So for a dog, the tennis shoe would stretch all the way up, half up the leg, and the top of the sock would be actually close to the body, and even more extreme with the horse. Anyway, it's a wonderful book, so do suggest you check that out. And that was just for mammals, but in fact all vertebrates have fairly similar joints, muscles, and bones. Here we have a chicken wing, and you see the wrist and the forearm and the elbow, so forth. Now, in animation, in order to position the limbs in a joint, in a pose, so positioning the joint and specifying the various angles for the joints in order to establish a pose. One way of doing this is with forward kinematics, and in this case the animator would determine the angle of rotation for each joint. So you would presumably start with the shoulder, rotate that to the desired angle, then rotate the elbow, and then finally establish the angle of the wrist. Now, this use of forward kinematics can be somewhat tedious for the animator, and especially difficult in some situations where, for example, you need to maintain a stationary part of the joints. A common example is if you have a character that is walking, establishing the angles for the different joints, say the hip and the knee, fixing those frame by frame while maintaining a planted foot, so that in other words, the foot doesn't slide in an unnatural fashion, is rather difficult with forward kinematics. For this reason, sometimes the motion is specified using inverse kinematics. So in this case, the animator would control the position of a so-called end effector. The end effector might be the hand, so the animator would position the hand, and then the computer would calculate the angles for the elbow and the shoulder. Now, this inverse kinematics isn't foolproof in that the rotations that are calculated may not be natural poses. You may lift the hand up to do a high five, and some of the intermediate positions may look awkward and unnatural. And furthermore, the timing of the motion from the starting position to the end position may not be correct. So, in summary, in computer graphics, characters are posed and animated by rotating the joints. Vertebrates have similar revolute joints that are either pivot joints, hinge joints, or ball and socket joints. In forward kinematics, a figure is posed by setting the joint angles, whereas with inverse kinematics, the computer calculates the joint angles based on the position of an end effector, such as the hand or foot, and so the animator controls the positioning of the end effector, and the joint angles are determined from a computer calculation. Now, this is just an introduction to the types of rotations which are involved in character animation, and in some of the other tutorials we'll get more into the physics of what's involved when something is rotating, specifically the types of forces which create a rotation, which would be a torque, and how the law of acceleration applies to rotation. So, see you then.